without any more faffing about, you're welcome now to come to your mat, to lie on the floor in semi-supine position. And I won't show you today, I will just describe it to you. So you're lying on the floor on your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor as well. You want to have your feet not too close to your bum. They want to be a little far away so that your knees have got some space at the back of them so that they don't feel overcrushed. You want your feet wide enough apart so that your legs feel as stable as they possibly can. And at first it can feel a little unstable doing this, but you know, with time, the pelvis stabilizes and so too do the legs. So I see now that you're all pretty set. So we're going to start thinking about ourselves in an Alexander way. So as I mentioned before, the Alexander technique is often about thinking of sort of expanding and releasing and letting go. And that's true of today. We shall be doing all of that. But we're going to be releasing and thinking in a slightly different way. But we still want to know where we are. And so I'd still like you to become aware of the weight of your head resting on your books or whatever chosen support you have today. And as you're becoming aware of the weight of your own head on your books, you're going to ask for the neck muscles to ease off a bit. You're going to say to the muscles around the jaw and right up by your ears, around the base of the skull, that they don't have to hang on. Your neck doesn't need to hang on to your head because your head is fully supported by the blocks, by the books that it's lying on. And then I'd like you to bring your awareness to your resting shoulder girdle, the upper back, the upper arm bones, and just notice the floor beneath them, that support that it's giving you. Taking your mind further down to your heavy pelvis, resting too on that floor. And if you can, let go in your belly. Just softening in the belly a little. It doesn't need to be gripping on. It doesn't need to hang on to anything right now. And you might find that your legs wobble a bit and they might need a little adjustment. You might want to, at any point this evening, let the knees fall in and rest on each other to give yourself a break with the legs. But if possible, they want to just be resting there parallel in this semi-supine position. Say hello to your feet, the left one, the right one. It might be the first time today that you've taken your feet out of your shoes since this morning. And if so, it might be a welcome thought of the feet being perhaps a little wider than they are, imagining the toes uncurling away into the distance. And then I'd like you to become aware of the crown of your head, the top of your head. Just knowing where it is, saying hello, there it is. How often do we think about it? Well, actually quite a lot if we're practicing the Alexander technique, but hey. So saying hello to the crown of your head. And then I'd like you to think about, to become aware of, the space between your shoulder blades. The space between your shoulder blades, that piece of spine there, that upper back. The muscles that lie around that piece of spine between your shoulder blades. It could be the top of the shoulder blades, it could be down by the bottom of the shoulder blades, but somewhere in your upper back, we're just thinking of that piece of spine. And we don't have to do anything with it now, we're just aware of it. And then go back to the crown of your head. And rather than flitting between the 2 points, I'd like you to expand your mind and say, I can be with the crown of my head at the same time as somewhere between my shoulder blades. And you can imagine or think of a connection between those 2 spaces. If you're a very sort of visual person, you might be able to think your way down from the crown of your head, through your own head, to the top of your spine, and all the way through your spine to between your shoulder blades, or even lower. You might be able to get a sense of, an idea of the crown connecting somewhere in towards your upper spine. And then move on from that thought. Nothing else needs to be done. You can say hello again to perhaps the arms resting in the floor, the elbows resting in the floor. And then we're going to say hello to your feet. We're back down there, other end of the body, the left foot, the right foot. That lovely contact of them on the floor. And how does that feel today? Are you present with the balls of the feet, or are you all in the heels? Can you release in the ankles, or does that feel unstable? I'd like you to think from underneath your feet and travel up through your shin bones. I'd like you to think of those shins lengthening. Of course, the bones aren't going to lengthen, they're bones, but we can think the length, and it can help to organise the musculature around the lower legs. So from underneath your feet that are resting on the floor, thinking up through the shin bones, all the way to your kneecaps. And when you get to the top of your shin bones, where your kneecaps are, you're going to imagine or think of those kneecaps very much just resting on the knees. They don't need to do anything. The muscles around the knees don't have to hang on to the kneecaps. They're happy where they are. Leaving your kneecaps alone. But perhaps checking in with the back of the knee. How does that feel? Is it tight there? Could it be a little softer? And then we're going to use our imagination. We're going to imagine that we have hollow thighs. And then we're going to imagine that from our knees is going to be a never-ending pouring of sand through our hollow thighs back into our pelvis. And even if you've been learning the Alexander technique for many years and don't really need all of these funny visualizations, have a go. It's really quite pleasant. So you're thinking of a flowing, a pouring of sand, or my mother, in fact, this morning was using liquid gold. I liked her style. Thinking back from the knees all the way down through the thighs in towards the hip sockets. And you're thinking of that sand pouring and pouring into the pelvis. And because you're lying in semi-supine, that pelvis can be filling up with the sand. And the sand will be heading towards the back of your pelvis, towards the front of your lower spine. Keep letting the sand pour through the thighs, through the hips, into the pelvis, in towards the front of your lower spine. And see how far you can imagine that sand goes. Can it come all the way up to your diaphragm? All the way up to the top of the open part of your ribs, perhaps? The sort of costal arch area. Can you really let that sand pour in? Allowing your legs to connect deeply in towards the middle of your body. And then let's go back up to the top of the body. Remind yourself of your connection between the crown of your head and that space between your shoulder blades. How's that space between the shoulder blades feeling? Do you have a sensation there? Can you notice whether it's feeling tight or held? Can you send an intention to release it? What does that do to your breathing? If it's comfortable, I'd like you to have your hands placed somewhere on your abdomen, your lower belly, or the front of your hips, somewhere on your body, so that your elbows are dropping back and resting into the floor. And I'd like you to be aware of your fingertips that are touching yourself, the base, the heel of your hand, at the base of your thumb. Really getting a sense of that contact. Perhaps noticing the movement of your body underneath it as you breathe. A subtle wave of movement as you breathe in and out. I'd like you then to think your way from your fingertips to your wrists. And imagine that around your wrists, you have 2 watches, one on each hand. And the watch strap wrapping around your wrist is the perfect fit for you. It's not too tight and it's not too baggy. And if you're anatomical, you can imagine a fascial band wrapping around your wrist with just the right amount of tone, just the right amount of elasticity. And we're then going to say hello again to the fingertips, but this time we're going to know where the fingertips are and think back towards your elbows that are resting on the ground. As if you were gently asking your forearms to lengthen. Keep the awareness through the fingertips. And as the forearms feel lengthened or you become aware of them, find some ease in the joints of your elbows, right in the crook of your arm there. Take your mind to that piece of spine between your shoulder blades. I wonder if something's a little bit freer there now. Perhaps the shoulder blades themselves can fall away from the rib cage a little, making it easier for those ribs to move as you breathe in and out. Take your mind back to your hands, thinking of that flow from your fingertips back down through to your elbows. And then from your elbows, travel up through your upper arm bones towards your shoulder girdle. If you wanted to introduce a bit of sand thinking, you're more than welcome, thinking of a flowing from the elbows through the upper arms and in towards the center line of your body. Let go of an expectation of where the flow of sand is going to end up. Perhaps your flow of sand comes up the upper arm bone in towards the chest through the pectoral muscles and towards the breastbone and the collarbone. Or perhaps your sand flows up the upper arm bone all the way across the back of the shoulder and in through to the base of the back of your neck. Or perhaps the sand in your arms flows up from the elbows in through the shoulders and can find its way all the way towards your diaphragm to meet with your legs. Say hello to your feet again. Just remind yourself in your mind where they are. That length through the lower leg bones as the knees release up towards the ceiling. From your knees, think of that flowing energy back through the thighs, that sand pouring its way back through the pelvis, filling up the pelvis, front of the spine, and coming all the way up to the diaphragm, where it joins the energy from the arms, connecting up. Say hello to the crown of your head. You can even ask for something to release in the crown of your head. And as you ask for something to release in the crown of the head, just know in your mind that that is connected all the way through and back down to that space between the shoulder blades in your upper back. And perhaps, in fact, you could almost think of the crown of the head connecting down and into your diaphragm as well. As if all your limbs are well connected to you, somewhere deep inside. And as that connecting up starts to be apparent within your body, you might notice an ease around your rib cage, as if the cylindrical rib cage can expand and release with each breath. No special breathing required, just your regular, everyday, steady breathing. And what we sometimes find when we've connected the limbs and the head back in towards the body is when we start to become aware of the space around us. The body can spring out and take its space a little bit more fully. As you become aware of the space beyond your toes and the space above and beyond your head, it's almost as if you can finally relax into that space, taking it up, filling the space with you. You're not very big compared to everything else in the world, so you're allowed to take the space that's yours. Above your head, below your feet, to the left side of you, and to the right. Being aware of the space up in front of your body, that huge gap towards your ceiling, and the supportive space, which is the floor beneath you. Allow yourself now to safely expand into that space with easy shoulders, with easy hips, with a free neck, and an open upper chest. And just notice how that all feels. Is it okay? Does this feel good in your body? So you've been lying there for quite some time, and some of you might think that this is absolutely delightful and could stay there for another half hour. And some of you might be starting to feel a little bit like you might want to move. And so that's your choice now, whether you just let your knees rock from side to side, or perhaps mindfully allow the head to roll from left to right, really feeling the back of the head on your blocks, on your books, the support under you. You might want to change the position of your arms, allow them to unfold and feel the ground beneath you. Or even stretch out your legs to let yourself go into fully supine. Listen to your body and do what it needs to do. Maybe you just need a little bit of a stretch and a pandiculation. And as we come towards the end of our little constructive rest, you can decide now whether you're going to stay on the floor or roll on your side and come on up to sitting. If you do choose to come up to sitting, take your time. There's no prizes for going fast in the Alexander world. Give yourself the opportunity to pause, free your neck, think of your widening back as you eventually roll over on your side. And if you're staying where you are, you can still free your neck and you can widen your back. And you can think of those knees releasing up towards the ceiling and away from each other.